The question on the table is, does a rising China spell trouble for the United States? Or in slightly different words, from an American perspective, is a powerful China likely to be bad for the United States? I think the answer is axiomatically yes. And I say this not because I feel any personal hostility towards the Chinese, which I certainly don't, or because I think China is particularly aggressive because it was or is a communist country, or it is run in an authoritarian political form. I think that matters very little. And I don't say it because I think China is likely to behave irrationally in the future. My argument is that the best situation for the United States from the perspective of maximizing its security is to be the most powerful state in the international system. The bigger the gap between you and everybody else, the more secure you are. To put it in Pentagonese, you don't want a peer competitor in the international system. To give you two examples that highlight this point, think about the United States and its two immediate neighbors, Canada and Mexico. As you know, we are much more powerful than either one of those countries. None of you go to bed at night worrying about Canada or Mexico attacking the United States tomorrow, next week, or next year. That's simply not going to happen because we're so powerful. Would you trade the present situation for one where Canada and Mexico, or Canada or Mexico, was twice as powerful as the United States? Of course you wouldn't. It's much better to have a situation where we are the most powerful state in the Western Hemisphere. Same basic logic applies to China. If China has two choices, one, it can have a Japan in Asia that's 5 times more powerful than China, or a situation where China is 5 times more powerful than Japan. Which one of those alternatives do you think the Chinese will choose? It's an open and shut case. They'd much prefer to be 5 times more powerful. And the same basic argument applies to the United States and China, today, tomorrow, or at any point in time. If you have a choice of being as powerful or less powerful than China, or being more powerful, which would you choose if you're interested in maximizing your security? An open and shut case. Let me spell out the logic that underpins my argument. The principal goal of any state in the international system, it's not the only goal, but the principal goal is survival. And the reason is if you don't survive, you can't pursue any other goals. The problem that states have is they operate in an anarchic system. That's political science speak for saying that they operate in a system where there's no higher authority that you can turn to if you get into trouble. In other words, if you dial 911 in a crisis in international politics, there's nobody at the other end. In a system like that, where you're dealing with other states whose intentions you can never be certain of, and you want to understand here that it's impossible for the United States to discern what Chinese intentions will be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. We don't know what those intentions will be. In a system where you can't discern intentions and where there is no higher authority that you can turn to when you're in trouble, the best way to maximize your chances of surviving is to make sure that you are by far the most powerful state in the international system. To put it in colloquial terms, you want to be the biggest and baddest dude on the block, so that nobody fools around with you. To put it in political science speak, you want to be a hegemon. Now the question is, what does the system look like today? The situation today from an American point of view is ideal. We are by far the most powerful state on earth. We dominate the Western Hemisphere. There's no state in our region of the world that could possibly challenge us. We have tremendous power projection capabilities, which is why we're called the only superpower in the world. And in Asia and in Europe, the two areas of the world where there are other great powers or potential great powers, we have no peer competitor. There's no Imperial Japan, there's no Imperial Germany, there's no Nazi Germany, and there's no Soviet Union. From an American point of view, that's a wonderful situation. Now, what is the future going to look like if in, say, 20 years, China continues to grow economically the way it has grown over the past 20 years? What you're going to get is a country that's economically pretty close to being as strong as the United States. And you can rest assured that China's going to turn that economic might into military might. They'd be foolish if they didn't. You'll then have a country that's roughly the military equivalent of the United States, or at least close to it. That country is going to try to dominate Asia the way the United States has successfully dominated the Western Hemisphere. They'd be fools to do otherwise. Do you think the Founding Fathers and their successors in this country were fools because they attempted to establish and did establish hegemony in the Western Hemisphere? Of course not. They did it for good security reasons. The Asians will do the same. The Chinese will do the same thing in Asia. We have a Monroe Doctrine here in the United States. Most of you know it very well. We basically tell the European and Asian great powers that they have to stay out of our hemisphere. We don't want them here. Don't you think the Chinese are going to feel the same way in Asia when they're powerful enough to think about dominating Asia? Furthermore, they're going to develop significant power projection capability, just like we have developed significant power projection capability. They're going to develop a blue water navy, and that navy is going to be designed to go into the Middle East, much the way our navy is designed to go in the Middle East. When I was a young boy, my mother used to say to me, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's good for the United States, why don't you think it'll be good for China to try and dominate Asia and to try and develop significant power projection capability? Of course, this all raises the question then, how is the United States likely to react? It's very simple. We have a clear record here on how we react when other countries try to dominate either Europe or Asia. We go to great lengths to stop them. Imperial Germany, Imperial Japan, Nazi Germany, and the former Soviet Union. They're all on the scrap heap of history, and we played a key role in putting them there. The United States will not tolerate a situation where China tries to dominate Asia. And as I said, China will try to dominate Asia, just the way the United States has tried to dominate and has succeeded at dominating the Western Hemisphere. What is my bottom line here? My bottom line is straightforward. The present situation is better for the United States and more stable than a world in which China is as powerful or almost as powerful as the United States. In other words, if China rises, trouble is in store for the United States. Thank you.